This is where we talk about languages and language learning and all sorts of other stuff, and we play games.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time, and we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
El hospital
還元一級の先というのは、本当に誰も知らない字ばっかりでしょうね。私は、
Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Mordförrättare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Ben neredeyse her gün okuldayım. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is skor, and that also means elephant. Okay.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time, and we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
ça, ça, c'est ça, que c'est ça, non ça, c'est ça. Sol chi sa che nulla sa, ne sa più di chi ne sa. Ecco.
Bonjour et bienvenue à Hyperpolyglotting avec Élise. Moi, c'est Élise, traductrice, éditrice et écrivain avec 20 ans de travail. Et ça, c'est la transmission en direct ou en jeu des jeux, surtout GeoGuessr en dernier temps. Et parle des langues, de la linguistique, de l'acquisition des langues.
10-159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Nei. Man. Bien. Yo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bambas. Bamba, okay, Bambas is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,005.
Un généreux dégénéré, régénéré, des généraux dégénérés. Facile. Sì, ecco, la gente È la cosa che mi dice la gente, sempre che scoprisce che quante lingue parlo, io sempre avevo l'impressione, diciamo, di che non era così, non era tan così, ma poi, dopo di aver visto qualche poliglota in YouTube, una delle cose che avevo scoperte era giustamente che la metodologia usata da quella gente poliglota che non avevo mai conosciuta prima, era più o meno la stessa metodologia che usavo io.
I buy a computer or what? And here's another example. I like to point these out. For this word for or, fuck sounds vaguely like Hogun and the Hok in Hogun in Korean or Waku in Japanese, and that appears it is the exact same kind of character.
Okay, let me see.
Un chasseur, ça son chassé, ses chassés sont son chien de chasse.
Der dicke Dach.
Okay, der dicke Dachdecker deckt dir dein Dach, drum dank dem dicken Dachdecker, dass der dicke Dachdecker dir dein Dach deckt. Hola y bienvenidos al directo de Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. Yo soy Elisa, traductora, escritora y editora y comunicadora social con más de 20 idiomas de trabajo. Y aquí vamos a estar jugando videojuegos, sobre todo GeoGuessr, y hablando de idiomas, la mejor forma de aprenderlo y caleta más. Zwei Zwetschgenzweigen zwitscherten zwei tschechische Schwalben. Tres tristes tigres tragaban trigo en un trigal en tres tristes trastos.
Oh, I see. This is Diche Ishai Fui, which means do you want food? But yeah, are you hungry? That kind of thing. How are the boys? Cine da boy. Posso Milao. Pote. Buenese. Proteine. Utros. Protopolo. In the designated chicken eating area, obviously.
Okay, still 3 times I have to defeat him. And I don't have a whole lot of health left.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time, and we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Monsieur. Livre. Liwe livre.
Paks.
Mustan kissan paksut posket.
Matjeje. Ja. Si. Vysoký. Matjeje. Proč? Víte. Počkej. A. Si. Traxex.
Aspri petra xes aspri apton ilio xex asproteri. Aspri petra xes aspri apton ilio xes asproteri.
En coginio panas.
Oh boy.
Ferad verda ferda vedri.
هقب. هفد. 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 هق. 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 Саша
Саша по шоссе несла сушку на счастье и сосала сушку. Саша по шоссе несла сушку на счастье и сосала сушку.
معلمة.
This is Arabic. And it's from Mu'allim.
Jumani mwalimu mke.
Ирак чимав чипах чемп чавю чи ченчи чини. Чирак чимав чипа да чирак чимав чипцах чемп чавю чи ченчи чини. Бакакит альшит. Икрене. Бакакит альши икрене.
Oh, things speak cat sounds. Meow and the pictures of the fish. That's they were proud.
Sööpel. Kupu. Yrittävät. Uraista. Omena.
Are in the city center. And it's got some interesting aspects to it.
여자는 어느 나라에 있습니까? 여자는 어느 나라에 있습니까? 여자는 어느 나라에 있습니까?
Countries for living things.
Ani no namae wa
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So, anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Lo que pasa es que la manera, y esto se ve en tantos lugares, no es cuestión regional, sino más bien de un problema fundamental de la pedagogía oficial de los idiomas extranjeros, y que la manera en que se enseñan en tantos lugares, en las clases, en el colegio, no tiene nada que ver con el estado actual de la investigación sobre lo que se llama adquisición de idioma.
Doesn't, you can try something else.
In fact, I would say often you really know you're getting it with languages if you can't really explain why something's right, but you just bloody well know it's right.
Hi, and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I am Elise, translator, editor, and writer with 20 working languages, and this is where we talk about languages and language learning and all sorts of other stuff, and we play games.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
還元一級の先というのは本当に誰も知らない字ばっかりでしょうね。私は
Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Morfar är tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Benedese. Her beautiful day. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is skor, and that also means elephant.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has... Hello and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I'm Elise, translator, writer, and editor with 20 working languages, and this is the stream where we're going to look at some language learning advice and answer your language learning related questions, and going to look at some resources for learning Arabic and Japanese, and just talk languages and language stuff in general, all in support of my current crowdfunded translation project, which is also support for my survival. I'm currently on $4.95 out of $1,200 on the current project. You can read the finished translations at the link I'm about to drop in chat, which I... hang on a second. I meant to have that actually ready in Notepad in advance, but then I forgot. So there that is, and donations are always very much welcome. Over here, trying to raise the remaining $705 on this project ASAP to cover some urgent expenses, insurance, and assorted other stuff like that. But let's get stuck in. How's everybody doing, chat? Okay, let's see, what have we got here? Okay, we've got a video here from a channel I've not actually seen before called The Best Way to Learn a Language According to Science. The Ling Otter is the channel. Let's just see what their ideas are. Never heard of the channel, This is just something that came up when I was looking up the subject of language learning advice. Hey Badger, how you doing?
So you...
Okay, get it full screened. And here we go.
probably encountered
As always, let me know if I need to make any adjustments to the audio on this.
some YouTube gurus claiming that you can learn a language in a month if you just follow their advice and bought some language learning lessons that they have created. Well, first of all, you can't really learn a whole new language in a month. Even if
Yeah, I mean, getting off to a good start, I would say with that. You can definitely make some progress in a month if you can do it very intensively, especially if you've got, if it's a language that is closely related to something you already know. But, like, actually managing to learn a language in a month is not something that is particularly likely.
the most diligent of learners will not be able to attain fluency in such a short amount of time. Often than not, these YouTubers are just clickbaiting and attempting to sell you something, which is why I wanted to talk about these quote-unquote best methods of language learning. As a person who has gotten a degree in linguistics, I was a bit tired of seeing all these scams popping up in my recommendation feed, so I decided to make
Well, I mean, that is the joy of YouTube.
video. You see, I'll be going over all the most important second language acquisition theories that have been proposed by esteemed linguists. The linguists that I'll be mentioning in this video have dedicated their whole lives to
Okay, I
researching
mean,
how
we're getting
second-
off to a pretty good start, so we're going to be looking at what... okay, so we are going to definitely be looking at some of the leading figures in this field. We've already got Crash in here.
language acquisition works, and how to best maximize learning another language. Along with this, I will also include various research studies that support these kinds of theories. After that, I'll give my own opinion of what I believe is the best.
Is this the best video quality we've got? No, this is HD. It's just like really, this was really just crappy footage, I guess. Okay. Clarified
way of
that.
learning another language based on these theories. Okay, so let's get started. So,
I mean, I'll just say I like the artwork already. I mean, that's a cute otter, nicely drawn.
think about the main components of learning a second language. You think of speaking, listening, reading, and writing. Linguists typically don't deal with written language, as that's a whole separate thing from actual spoken language, so let's focus on speaking and listening for now.
I mean, there are fields of linguistics that definitely do deal with with written language, and there is some debate within the field actually around whether this primacy that is accorded to spoken language, given just how much writing there is necessarily well founded. But yeah.
things that differentiates theories is how much importance is placed on speaking and listening. In other words, modern day linguists are attempting to figure out whether language input or output is more important for learning a language. Now that we got all that out of the way, let's talk about the first main theory, which is the output theory. One of the most notable advocates for
Hey Riveroon, how you doing?
the output theory is a Canadian applied linguist by the name of Meryl Swain. According to Meryl Swain, output is one of the most important factors when it comes to progressing in one's language learning. The main reason for this is because of something called the monitor. And no,
Yeah, okay, and the monitor, we will see, the monitor comes up a lot. The monitor also comes up in Krashen's work on input. Electronic. Is that an old Soviet model TV there?
No, not the monitor that is connected to your computer. A monitor in this context is a person's ability to filter out any incorrect language from being uttered. But why is this monitor so integral to the output theory? Well, according to Swain, the monitor allows the learner to notice any gaps in their knowledge of a second language. For example, I may want
Okay, yeah.
to tell a Spanish native.
I mean, so far, we're getting into, I'm liking this video. It's doing a good job of explaining these things. Okay, because this was going to be like the best ways to learn language according to science. So the first question is, are they going to actually discuss the science in a reasonable way? And clearly they are.
If only I had gotten a better grade. But before saying the phrase in Spanish, your internal monitor may catch that you're going to utter a sentence that is grammatically incorrect. Therefore, you may stop yourself from saying the sentence. The benefit of this is that your conscious brain has now been made aware that you lack the ability to convey regrets about past actions in the target language.
which can be helpful. I mean, if it actually... But of course the thing is, and this is where the input hypothesis comes in, the idea, if you have something that is mostly stopping you from speaking in the first place, that's also stopping you from getting responses that may in themselves actually provide input that helps correct these things.
If I had never done any output of the second language, I would have never noticed this gap in my knowledge. But now that I'm aware of it, I'm able to actively research the correct ways of saying my thoughts in the target language. This isn't just limited to grammar, but it can be as easy as learning new words in the language. While outputting your target language, you may notice that you don't know a word for a certain thing, so you might ask a native speaker or look it up in the dictionary. By doing this, you have increased your language ability. Now, you might be saying, can't we notice these gaps in knowledge simply through input only? In other words, can I just listen to a bunch
I mean, and I would say my, like, just strictly out of experience, I absolutely notice gaps through input and fill them.
media or native speakers and realize what things I don't know that way? Well, you can, but according to a 2002 study, the students who were made to output more language were able to learn new grammar much quicker than the students who were only given language input. The study suggests that output allows the students to learn grammar quicker. Of course.
Okay, and the question that I immediately have to ask, I'm not familiar with the study, is how much reading were these students doing? Because there is work that shows that pleasure reading in the target language is one of the best indicators, one of the things most closely associated with progress in grammar. So so my immediate question is, like, what other stuff was going on there? Like, what kind of input were they getting? Were they getting written input, or was it just audio?
This is only a study of 60 students, so take this with a grain of salt.
Well, there's another thing. There's a lot of the studies that you see in this sort of area when we talk about second language acquisition, they often have very tiny sample sizes.
Additionally, this was testing grammar and not other aspects of language like vocabulary. But why does output seem to be so important for grammar? Well, the main explanation is that when you're solely receiving language input, you're mostly focused on understanding the meaning of speech, which...
Of course, the thing... okay, hello, Emily. And another problem with this also is we're assuming that grammar is entirely a productive thing then. But the thing is, if you need to, in order to understand a thing, in order to understand an utterance in a language, you have to have some grasp of the way the syntax works. You have to have some grasp of the grammar. So there isn't just a productive aspect to grammar, like knowing, being able to put words in the right order. You have to actually understand what the word order means in the first place, because the word order itself and the endings and all that sort of stuff is also significant. So if we're treating grammar as an entirely output thing, we're missing an important aspect of grammar, actually.
Means that you aren't really paying much attention to the structure of language or the grammar. Meanwhile, when you are forced to do language output, your brain has to convert your own thoughts into meaningful sentences that are grammatically correct. Because of this, it appears that if you want to improve your grammar in a language, the most efficient way is probably to speak the language with a native speaker. This, of course, can be quite hard because many people live in areas where it's very hard to find native speakers in their target language. And that's why I want to introduce to you today's sponsor for the video, italki. Now, I was and still...
And I know people who actually work on italki. Pretty good resource, actually. I have not used it myself, but there are definitely people on there who know what they're doing.
I am an active user on italki, as I live in an area that doesn't really have many Japanese speakers. italki was great for this, as I was able to select a private tutor for personalized one-on-one lessons to fit my busy schedule during university. Also, I was able to practice my Japanese with native-speaking teachers of the language, which was how I was able to improve my speaking. Now, this isn't just for Japanese. There are over 30,000 teachers that you can choose from, so you'll be sure to find...
Yeah, I mean, I know, I've met somebody who teaches Isizulu on there. They're all sorts of languages.
Tutor that suits your busy schedule. The best thing about italki is that there's no subscription. You pay per lesson, which is great for me as a person that sporadically decides to take a lesson here and there. Here's a short clip from my most recent lesson so you can take a look for yourself. それからドイツ語やフランス語を勉強したくなかったです。
だからそれからは安全ですね。安全 and then something happens の時に。 それからございます。だから、理由の説明ですね。
Okay. I was wondering how Sorekara was getting in there.
ちょっと違います。はい。
So if you're interested in maximizing your language output no matter where you are, click the link in the description box below. The first 50 people who use the promo code TheLingOtter get a free $5 with a purchase of $10. And for a limited time, italki is hosting a language challenge from now until October. During this...
When was this? I have no idea. Oh, this is 2024. So, yeah, they're not hosting that now. So we're just... Okay. Skip over that bit.
The next theory that you probably have heard about is the input theory. Now, this one is often spouted to be the best method of learning a new language by many YouTubers online.
I mean, especially people who have a lot of experience doing it, it's worth noting. Like, a lot of people who have a lot of experience actually acquiring languages, if you listen to them talk about their methods, input figures very heavily. I mean, that's the case with me. In fact, I mean, one of the things that really was an eye-opener, as somebody who had kind of on my own been teaching myself all sorts of languages with methods that were largely of my own devising, just through trial and error, was the sheer number of people who definitely have learned a bunch of languages, who were doing it in ways that were very similar to what I was doing. Not necessarily exactly the same, but lots of repeated themes. Hello, Language Mania 99.
Some even claim to throw traditional learning out the window and solely rely on input. So, let's see what all the fuss is about and learn about input theory. It all started with a man named Stephen Krashen, who is the most famous proponent of the input theory. According to Stephen Krashen...
Yeah, I mean, he's basically the originator of it.
5 key principles that are important to know about the input theory, which include acquisition learning, comprehensible input, monitor hypothesis, natural order, and effective filter. Let's start.
I mean, acquisition learning, it should be made clear, is that there's a difference between these two things.
With the first one, which is acquisition learning, which is probably the most important thing to know about input theory. According to Krashen, there's a clear distinction between learning and acquisition. Think back on those times you were in a foreign language class and were told to memorize an entire conjugation table. This memorization of rules is what Krashen calls learning language. Acquiring language, on the other hand, is a subconscious process. A learner will often not realize that they have acquired new language. Compare this with learning, which...
Yeah, I mean, and experientially, if you talk... I mean, I can tell you this. I've actually had this experience as well. I think a lot of people who acquire languages do have this experience where suddenly they will realize actually they've got some structure that they didn't realize they had. It just sort of comes out spontaneously in a situation where it is appropriate.
Is more of an active and conscious action. According to Krashen, acquiring language is a more efficient way of becoming fluent when compared to learning language, since acquiring builds your ability to generate language spontaneously. Meanwhile, relying on your learned language will require you to slowly construct your sentences through recalling all the rules you learned in class, which takes much longer and is not really how we naturally speak. But how do you acquire language and not learn it? Well, this leads us into the second of the 5 important points.
I mean, he's doing, I should say, doing a very good job of explaining this, which, let me just drop a link to this video here in chat. It's, I mean, one of the things that I try to do on this channel is point out when there is somebody who's making videos who definitely is, knows what they're talking about and isn't grifting. And this is somebody who has actually done the work here. Their descriptions are quite good. They're accurate.
Comprehensible input. According to Krashen, the most ideal form of input you can have as a language learner is input that is slightly above your current level.
Okay, good. We're getting into I+1. That is the key thing.
Ideally, you want to control your input by having it be I+1, where I is your current language knowledge and +1 is the increase in the level. But what would this actually look like in practice?
Okay.
Well, imagine you're learning the English language and you encounter a sentence like, "We saw a lot of people dobbling into the subway." You probably understand this entire sentence except for the made-up word dobbling. This is a perfect example of I+1, or in other words, comprehensible input. Now, you probably don't even need a dictionary to understand this new word dobbling. Since you...
Is dobbling an actual word? Or is this just like a made-up word for an example?
can use the context to fill in the blanks. You'll probably assume that doubling has something to do with hopping onto a vehicle. And just like that, you have learned a new word in the language. This is why Stephen Krashen...
Although, it's worth noting that when you read what Krashen and others have written on it, it's not so much words as structures. The point is, I mean, yes, words also, but it's also, like, the ways in which the language is structured, syntactical arrangements. Like, there was the example of expressing a regret over a past event and how you formulate that. That would be an example of a structure. So you get, for example, I+1 content that gives you that would be somebody expressing what is understandable in context as being a regret over a past event.
That I+1 input is the best kind of input because you'll naturally acquire the new language without the need of a dictionary or textbook. Alright, but if this is all you need to learn a language according to Krashen, then is traditional learning just pointless? Well,
kind of.
Well, not necessarily. He just claims that this is less important than comprehensible input. This leads into the third concept of input theory, which is the monitor hypothesis. As mentioned before, a monitor is the brain's ability to filter out any language errors.
I mean, this is really a good breakdown of the research.
Speaking.
I mean, right now, pointing out this relationship where the monitor comes in acquisition.
According to Krashen, the main role of language learning is simply to build up the monitor. Then, the monitor checks your acquired language for correctness before producing speech. For example, I may have memorized the different conjugations for a verb in Spanish, so before saying a sentence in Spanish, my monitor might stop me from speaking until I make sure that I'm using the correct conjugation.
Yeah, I mean, another example of this is, for example, in Arabic, say you build up a bunch of consonant structures. You notice that qaf, ra, ba, all, you know, whenever you see that, it tends to be something to do with closeness, proximity. Like qariban is approximately, and then you come up with, you notice this word that that is like tataqarrib, or something like that, and you realize, and you haven't seen it before. Like, there was a word like that in the Levantine Arabic input that we were looking at yesterday. Using that scene, that famous scene from North by Northwest. I had not actually seen it, but my brain and like my monitor goes, qaf ra ba. So this is going to be something about coming closer. And that is kind of the monitor getting in there to a certain extent. It's also to a certain extent like internalizing structures. Because I have actually kind of looked at these different ways that the different kind of consonants, the ways these consonant structures change in accordance with different types of meaning. So it's kind of both of those things, and it's part of what can potentially allow you to notice novel things that you haven't, and potentially understand them when you haven't actually seen them before.
According to Krashen, learned language can be useful for checking mistakes in language, but it greatly impedes communication, since you have to stop and think about what you're going to say. Because of this, Krashen states that one should only really use their monitor while doing something like writing, where you're given the time to think about the correctness of a sentence and not...
let's see. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's kind of, there's a bit of a monitor, depending on how you come by it. The monitor is in there, but it's also, if you're acquiring structures in a language where everything is based on these sorts of consonant roots, then you will start to just notice them. You will start to be able to distinguish between the things that get added on to a root and the things and the root itself. So like ihtilal, you look at that and you say, okay, we know that I and the t and the law and the double lam, that is added on to a root that is in fact ha lam. Ha lam with madda. So hal, which is like to do with occupying. So ihtilal is the noun form that makes it occupation.
in situations like talking with another speaker, which requires spontaneous speech. Of course, there are arguments against Krashen's beliefs about how useful this monitor is in language learning, but more on that later. The fourth main point of the input theory is the argument of natural order. Basically, Krashen suggests that the order of language concepts that we learn in the classroom does not align with how humans naturally progress through language.
Yes, I mean, and it's worth noting there is empirical work supporting this, that people actually, that there are certain things that emerge in somebody who is acquiring a language before others. Most of the work that I've seen on this is to do with English, but, I mean, there is something to that. Okay, so the effect, I mean, this is good. Let's see. I'm going to skip ahead. Input in the classroom.
It's the natural process of language learning. Now, how could this input theory be implemented in...
Okay, this is a really nice guy, and so many people talk about input who do not point out, you know, who fall into this trap of treating input as a method rather than, you know, an ingredient, essentially. And this is doing a really good job of providing this sort of understanding you need in order to understand why that's wrong.
Language classes. Well, a teacher might only speak in the target language at all times. The teacher will have to adjust their language, of course, so that it's at the optimal I+1 level for the class. If it is a beginner class, then having a large amount of visuals to accompany speech will help fill in the context.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I mean, what he's describing right here is basically TPRS sorts of things.
Because of classrooms, importance is placed more on meaning rather than form. So a teacher may not want to correct the student's mistakes during class, unless the student directly asks, or if the teacher takes notes of the mistakes and shares them with the students after class.
In fact, there's some indication that that sort of active correction when speaking actually hinders acquisition rather than promoting it.
The teacher will also want to make their classroom a judgment-free zone to allow students to not be afraid of making mistakes, allowing for faster language acquisition. Alright, This sounds all good and dandy and whatnot, but are there any criticisms of Krashen's input theory? Well, quite a few. One major one is that the existence of a difference between acquisition and learning of a language has not been proven at all. It appears...
I mean, that's not so much a criticism as a very strong assertion that it does not really seem to fit with the evidence.
That Krashen just made this distinction without any real evidence to back up this claim. Another criticism comes from the applied linguist Wolfgang Butzkam, who states that understanding the grammar of a language is necessary for acquiring it. An example given...
Well, yes, but the question, which is true, but the question is how exactly you're understanding it. Like, I mean, yes, you need to be able to comprehend the structures to some extent in order to get there, but the question is how you come by that understanding. Like, we acquire language, we acquire our first language without anyone telling us anything about the grammar, and there are all sorts of like syntactical and grammatical mistakes that native speakers simply never make, which is actually, it's worth noting, the sort of evidence that exists for acquisition as distinguished from learning.
Given is if a student learned the phrase, "What time is it?" then they have only acquired the meaning of the entire phrase. But if they understood the grammar that underlies this phrase, then they would be able to produce new sentences like, "What day is it? What street is it?" By learning the grammar of a sentence, acquiring one phrase can lead to acquiring many other phrases as well.
But I mean, there again, the acquisition, this can all depend on all sorts of other things. Like, how are you, like, what was the word that they were getting from this? For example, if you're doing English TPRS and you say, you point at a clock and you say the time is 9:45, or whatever, and you know, a room full of people who have absolutely no English are looking at that, and they're hearing the word time, and they're also, you know, they're seeing it associated with a clock, so they're already getting at least some association of this word with a concept that's familiar to them, and you can just you just go from there. So how you acquire it has a lot to do with, well, you know, like are you? In fact, the question is: are you actually getting the entire, just acquiring an entire phrase, or are you getting elements of the phrase that become more meaningful as more input is provided?
So, although Krashen claims that learned language is not too important, it seems to really help in situations like these. In fact, a 2023 study gathered around 15,000 students and tested them on their reading comprehension. According to the study, the group of students who had a foundational understanding of grammar had higher reading comprehension rates compared to students who simply just read. Of course,
I mean, there's so many variables you'd want to tease out when you're doing that. When you're looking at that, like what sort of approach were they, what was the approach that they were being taught with, for example? Were they doing any kind of just pleasure reading in their target language? All sorts of other things. So, I mean, there are a lot of questions raised by that, by that finding.
this study was done on reading and not speech, but it could tell us something about the importance of traditional learning in a classroom when it comes to grammar. Other criticisms come from the proponents of output theory, who claim that having...
I mean, the thing is that I feel like that is a false dichotomy there. Because, again, are we only looking at people who are receiving traditional types of instruction versus people who just read? And what is just reading? Well, like, they must have received some kind of instruction. They must have, like, picked up the language in some ways to be able to have any reading comprehension at all. So, what's going on there? Like, it seems like that there are so many variables you'd want to know about. And maybe they did, and this is just not being discussed here. But, I mean, it seems like that finding seems a little bit thin as it's being summarized here.
An output allows for you to become aware of your gaps in knowledge. Without output, you may not be aware of what areas of language you need to focus on.
But, I mean, is it really true that that's only output, though? Like, if I hear a phrase and I don't understand a word, then clearly I have been made aware that there is a word I didn't understand. That is a gap in knowledge. Like, maybe there's a structure that is used in a phrase, and I don't understand what's going on with that structure. Surely that's making me aware of a gap in knowledge too. So I don't know that, like, the idea that only output makes you aware of these gaps, I don't know about, because, like, you're going to notice gaps when you don't understand things just as much as when you're trying to produce them. And you may actually find that there are things that you understand, so that knowledge is kind of there to a certain level, but when you try to spontaneously produce them, they fail you because it hasn't, like, sort of firmly established itself. It seems like there are actually two slightly different things going on.
So, although input theory seems to be spouted as the holy grail of language learning, it does come with a few downsides. The biggest one...
I mean, I don't know that we can just accept these criticisms as downsides, at least the way they're being summarized here. Because, like, every single one of these things, there is a fairly obvious rebuttal from the position of, from input theory. So...
being the lack of importance placed on output and traditional learning, despite some studies showing that it can be quite beneficial in speeding up your language learning. So,
in fact, one thing to note here that is kind of being missed in the discussion of input theory is that Krashen does talk about the importance of output. Specifically, he says, first of all, speech emerges. The idea is that you shouldn't try to force somebody to talk before they're ready. When they're ready, they will start talking. And that talking, that output in, like, a conversational context is going to be a generator of new input. So, I mean, he doesn't say that output isn't important, He says that it is important in a specific type of way.
So is that it? Is it either input or output? Well, there are a lot of other theories out there, but there's this last one I really want to talk about, since
Okay.
it combines both input and output, and that is interaction theory. The biggest proponent of this method was a psycholinguist by the name of Michael Long. According to him, the best way of learning a language is through face-to-face communication. If a native speaker is unable to communicate their ideas to you, they will naturally lower the complexity of their speech until it is comprehensible to a language learner. By doing this, the learner will now be getting constant comprehensible input tailored specifically for them, as long as they continue to communicate with that native speaker.
Yeah, I mean, this really does kind of bring the two things down, because this is actually a thing that Krashen talks about. He talks about what's called, like, foreigner talk, which is to say the way native speakers will sort of reduce the difficulty level of their language in order to make it more comprehensible to non-native speakers. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, this is...
On top of this, the learner will...
I mean, this kind of fits in with the whole idea of optimal input.
Be able to output as well. As the output theory suggests, the learner may realize that they're unable to communicate their idea effectively, so they'll ask the native speaker for an explanation, either on a definition or how to word something correctly. Overall, interaction theory is suggesting that to get the best comprehensible input and output, you need to be constantly interacting with native speakers who are...
Which is, one thing that's really quite interesting about this is, it's also quite consistent with the TPRS type method. Because that too is taking the language as, taking the language and making it easier for non-native speakers with a limited knowledge of it to understand. So these things actually, there's a lot of convergence here.
Willing to work with you. According to Long, the most ideal scenario for the interaction theory is if both the native speaker and the learner are placed in a situation in which communication is needed to achieve similar goals. For example, let's say you go to a rural...
So Darmok at Tanagra.
Farm in Mongolia and work with a family there. In order to achieve the goals of their farm, the family will have to communicate with the learner in their language. To do this, they will simplify their language and maybe use a lot of hand gestures to bridge the gap. Likewise, the learner will be forced to speak Mongolian, even if at a basic level, as to facilitate cooperation. In this ideal scenario, interaction theory suggests that the learner will learn the language at the most rapid and efficient rate. So...
Interesting. I mean, I think there's a lot to recommend that. And I don't, and I think this is not so much I should say, I mean, he also says this too, that this is sort of a synthesis of input and output. Although I think that it's actually very heavily weighted towards input. Because the crux of the thing ends up being that this native speaker is modifying input in order to make it more accessible.
In a classroom setting, a teacher who is really into the interaction method might encourage a back and forth between the more advanced speakers and the beginner speakers in the class. Once again though, there are a few arguments against this approach. Some researchers claim that interaction is not needed to learn a language. This can be seen in cultures that do not speak to their baby until the child has reached a certain point in their language development, such as the Kululi people in Papua New Guinea. If a baby is able to learn a language without any back and forth communication between them and the parent, then it appears that interaction is not really essential to language learning.
Yes, in fact, I mean, there are a lot of linguists who have said that first language acquisition comes more from witnessing speech rather than necessarily being spoken to.
Of course, these researchers are claiming that interaction is not necessary, but even if something is not necessary, it can still be beneficial. Another argument is that native speakers aren't the best at simplifying or explaining their own language, which can actually lead to more confusion for the learner, slowing down the learning. Additionally, this method depends a lot on the native speakers and whether they're willing to communicate with an individual who doesn't even speak their language.
Yeah.
Right, so now that you've heard some of the main theories of second language acquisition...
And I mean, another thing about interaction and its necessity is that you can acquire a whole lot, actually, from non-interactive situations. If you've got the kind of material, if you've got the right kind of input, if you are, like, primed in the right way. I mean, a lot of the sort of groundwork for language learning that I've used is non-interactive, and a lot of it has to do with reading very specific things that I know enough about the content of already that I can bridge any gaps in comprehension.
Which one is the best? Well, once again, these are all theories, so it might be best that you implement each one to the best of your ability and slowly adjust things depending on what best suits your learning style. Based on my own experience, I do believe that when you're starting to learn a language, traditional learning is actually very important. As the linguist Wolfgang Butzkamp stated, your ability to acquire language becomes much more efficient when you have a good understanding of grammar. So, as a beginner of a language, I would suggest grabbing a textbook and building your solid foundation of grammar.
I mean, at least some of this, I would not say, when we say a solid foundation, one thing I would disagree about, I don't know, maybe I'm not even disagreeing here, is that having some very, very basic understanding of certain key concepts, like what the word order is or something like that. Do words change form or do they not change form? Stuff like that is definitely useful. But you don't need to do a deep dive into the grammar and syntax of the language. In fact, I think at a certain point there is sort of a point of diminishing returns there.
You have this foundation established, textbooks' return on investment drops drastically, as what you really need now at this point is to improve your comprehension of the language. This is when I would suggest getting into the input theory and start consuming as much media as possible in your target language. Ideally, you want to find media that is slightly above your level. Thankfully, there are things such as graded readers that are tailored to language learners.
Yeah. I mean, and also tons of YouTube videos. We were just watching a free YouTube channel yesterday, Levantine Arabic, that is absolutely tailored, as TPRS for absolute beginners, to be as understandable as possible with all sorts of visuals, with all sorts of repetition. He did a really good job with the repetition. There's lots of free stuff like that.
Around this point, I would also suggest starting to get some output as well. This output will help solidify all of your acquired language and give you an insight on what parts of the language you aren't really good at. Of course, you can adjust the amount of input and output as needed depending on your learning style and what you think is working best for you. If any of you have some tips and tricks for...
Okay, so that was Ling Otter. Channel seems quite worthwhile. There's some things I would disagree with in there, but on the whole, quite, I would say, a very reasonable discussion of the competing theories and stuff like that. And I mean, the otter is cute. I like the otter with the fish on head. That's cute. I am going to take a quick bio break now, and let me just say thanks to everyone who has supported the project. My current crowdfunded translation project is up to $495 out of a fundraising goal of $1,200. I am trying to get the remaining $705 ASAP to cover some urgent expenses that I have. You can, if you want to read the finished translations, you can do that at the link I'm about to give you. And if anyone wishes to donate to the project, that is always welcome at the other link I'm about to give you. Also, getting the word out, sending these, showing people these translations, telling people about the project, all that stuff is very much appreciated. So I am now going to just go on a quick bio break and be back in just a moment.
Hi, and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I am Elise, translator, editor, and writer with 20 working languages, and this is where we talk about languages and language learning and all sorts of other stuff, and we play games.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
E l'ospitale
還元一級の先というのは、本当に誰も知らない字ばっかりでしょうね。私は、
Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Mordförrättare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Benedese. Herregud, Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is sword, and that also means elephant.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time, and we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Ça, c'est ça, che c'est ça, non ça, c'est ça. Sol chi sa che nulla sa, ne sa più di chi ne sa. Ecco.
Bonjour et bienvenue à Hyperpolyglotting avec Élise. Moi, c'est Élise, traductrice, éditrice et écrivain avec 20 ans de travail. Et ça, c'est la transmission en direct ou en jeu des jeux, surtout GeoGuessr en dernier temps. Et parle des langues, de la linguistique, de l'acquisition des langues.
10-159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Night. Night. Come on. Yeah. Yo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bamba, okay, Bambas is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon.
Sotto le frasche del capanno 4 gatti grossi stanno. Sotto 4 grossi sassi, 4 grossi e grassi gatti. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Facile. Sì, ecco, la gente... è la cosa che mi dice la gente, sempre che scoprisce che quante lingue parlo. Io sempre avevo l'impressione, diciamo, di che non era così, non era tan così, ma poi dopo di aver visto qualche poliglota in YouTube, una delle cose che avevo scoperte
era giustamente che la metodologia usata da quella gente poliglota che non avevo mai conosciuta prima, era più o meno la stessa metodologia che usavo io.
I buy a computer or what? And here's another example. I like to point these out. For this word for or sounds vaguely like hogun and the hok in hogun in Korean or waku in Japanese, and that appears it is the exact same kind of character.
Okay, let me see.
Un chasseur, c'est son chassé. Ses chassés sont son chien de chasse.
Der dicke Dach.
Okay, der dicke Dachdecker deckt dir dein Dach, drum dank dem dicken Dachdecker, dass der dicke Dachdecker dir dein Dach deckt.
Hola y bienvenidos al directo de Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. Yo soy Elisa, traductora, escritora y editora y comunicadora social con más de 20 idiomas de trabajo. Y aquí vamos a estar jugando videojuegos, sobre todo GeoGuessr, y hablando de idioma, la mejor forma de aprenderlo y caleta más.
Zwei Zwetschgenzweigen zwitscherten zwei tschechische Schwalben. Tres tristes tigres tragaban trigo en un trigal en tres tristes trastos.
Oh, I see. This is Diche Ishai Fui, which means do you want food? But yeah, are you hungry? That kind of thing. How are the boys? Cine Tahor. Oso Milao. Pote. Buenese. Proteine. Utros. Protoculo. In the designated chicken eating area, obviously.
Okay, still 3 times I have to defeat him. And I don't have all. And I'm back. And I'm back with a nice cup of tea. So, let's see, where can we go next? I had talked about some Arabic language resources. So why don't we just... Okay, there are a bunch that I've found. It'd be interesting to see here. How to learn Arabic on your own. So this is by somebody called Brian Wiles. Not familiar with him either. I try to get people in here that
you want to speak
I've not heard of, because then we can actually talk about things that maybe I haven't talked about before. And people. So okay, I'm just gonna link this video. You can see the channel and stuff as we look at his advice on learning Arabic, and judging from the flag, he seems to have focused on Egyptian Arabic. Not quite ready to drink, but okay. Give that a couple of minutes.
Spoken Arabic fast.
Yes, I thought, okay. Yeah, I saw an Egyptian flag somewhere in the thumbnail, so I kind of figured Mustody was probably going to be in here. Oh, you're familiar. Okay, cool.
This video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. But wait, why should you even listen to me?
Well, I mean, I'm interested in part because Arabic's a language I'm working on, and if there are ideas that are worthwhile that I have not previously seen, I'd love to see them. I have my own thoughts on the things that have been helpful for me in getting to the admittedly not very high level that I'm currently at. And so it'll be interesting for all of us. And I mean, Atta's, at least one person with Atta is in the chat who has also studied Arabic, so let's get stuck in.
أنا تعلمت أتكلم عربي بطلاقة بداء وداء بس. And I even filmed a TV show
I mean, that pronunciation sounded pretty good to me.
in Egypt in Arabic.
حمار وحلاوي البطيخ حمرا عندي أقرأ من قريب.
Oh wait, okay. Now I have to go back because I want to know. I want to know what the word he used for janky is.
البطيخ حمرا عندي أقرأ من قريب.
Abra?
Yeah, it was crazy. And look, I've never lived in an Arabic-speaking country. I didn't study Arabic in school or take courses. I learned everything at home. And so
Okay.
can you. All right. All right, I'm going to break this video down into parts and move pretty quickly because your time is valuable, but everything in here is important, so I highly recommend that you watch
I would
the
say I like the production values on this.
entire thing. First of all, if you want to speak with real people, you should be learning a spoken dialect of Arabic, not Fusha, also known as MSA.
I will say, I mean, if you want to be able to understand the news and stuff like that, Fusha is definitely worth having at least some understanding of. But if you run around like speaking Fusha to people, it's gonna sound weird. Especially if you do it with all the case endings. A friend of mine who's was learning Arabic a long time ago and just got back into it posted this thing about like learning case endings, and it occurred to me there seem to be only a couple of occupational groups where an active, detailed knowledge of case endings seems to be necessary. One is studio-based newsreaders. They always use the case endings. People on location don't seem to, for the most part. They speak Fusha too when they're doing like reporting on location, but you don't hear the case endings much. And then imams anyone who is like reading from the Quran and the Hadith and everything like that, they're, religious texts, you need the case endings for that, classical Arabic and all of that. And then like Abu Ubaidah, he certainly always used case endings, and his successor also does. But other than that, it doesn't seem like you really need them.
Basically, no one speaks MSA in the real world. It's used for things like newspapers and studying the Quran. But if you want to speak to people in a cafe or on the street or anywhere really, you need a dialect. And for this video, we're going to focus on the most widely understood Arabic dialect, which is Egyptian, Masri. Don't worry, I'm also going to have tons of resources for other dialects in the description
Okay,
box
cool.
below.
So he's going to, in addition to talking about method, he has some recommendations for resources, which, like, I'm personally interested in, but also, I mean, it's probably interesting to discuss them as well. It'll give me stuff to, like, talk about on this channel, for example, which is always good. I like to have things to talk about when I'm on air.
But
It makes it more interesting for everybody.
Masri, and you should too, Habib. Okay, if you're just starting to study Egyptian Arabic, you should get this book, El Mumtaz. It's brand new, it was published this year, and it's much easier to use on your own than Kalimni Arabi or Kulu Tamam.
Okay, nice recommendation. I'm not familiar with any of those books, but I'm interested,
And
certainly.
the audio companion is excellent, and it's free online. If you're a total beginner,
As in the audio is free online or the book is free online?
this is where you want to start. But let me say this now. If you want to save yourself an unbelievable amount of time and effort as you learn Arabic, do yourself a favor and hire a one-to-one tutor. Go to Preply.com.
Not familiar with Preply. I guess it's sort of like italki.
Find someone you like from Egypt or Syria or whatever dialect you're learning and set up 1 or 2 lessons a week. That's all you really need. It will double, if not triple, your rate of progress because, believe me, Arabic is not like English.
And that, well, I mean, that's certainly true.
Especially in the beginning, you will benefit hugely from just a little bit of personal guidance. And if you click the link below or use the code Brian50, you'll even get half off your first lesson.
And I'm not sure how long ago he made this, so I don't know if that promo code is still good, but yeah, I mean, who knows?
So
might be
just
worth a try.
Try it, and if you hate it, you can always stop. Now, whether you're working with a tutor or flying solo, you might need a little extra help with your Arabic pronunciation.
Almost certainly, because there are a bunch of sounds in Arabic that if you're an English speaker or a speaker of most Indo-European languages, you will not have developed much ability to pronounce, because they rely on muscles that you don't really use for like speech in Indo-European languages for the most part.
Sounds like law, hef, ha, ein, and ein require some unfamiliar musculature for English speakers.
Yeah.
And this video has detailed illustration.
Arabic alphabet pronunciation. The Arabic Coach is the name of this channel that he's recommending. Okay. And, oh, nice, showing the anatomy, too. Because a lot of the time, with the unfamiliar sounds, that's good. A lot of the time, if you're not used to a sound, if you're not used to distinguishing it, recognizing it, and you're not used to speaking it, having some understanding of what bits of the anatomy are involved in producing it can make a huge difference.
Of the vocal muscles as they make different Arabic phonemes. The link is below. It's very helpful. Check it out. Don't use flashcards to build your Arabic vocabulary.
I mean, I agree with that. I think that is a very overrated approach.
I mean, you can if you really want, and these sets from lingualism.com are the best available in my opinion. Or you can also use these decent free sets on Anki, but I highly encourage you to memorize full sentences in Arabic. And
yeah, I mean, this sort of falls into shadowing, which I've talked about as, you know, an approach that I've used for a lot of things. Especially if the full sentences keep using a lot of the same words in different contexts. You can, because it helps you get used to all of the words, too.
Not individual words, because they can change a lot depending on context. Spelling, pronunciation, plurals. Trust me, it gets messy. So here's the smart move. Use ChatGPT to translate full English sentences into spoken Arabic. And
I mean, I would not necessarily do this because ChatGPT is not good at translating things. I mean, the way I would do this, I mean, the thing about ChatGPT is the hallucination problem that people hear about when it's misused as a search engine, which it's not, is also present when you use it to translate things, which it can't do. I would recommend, I mean, a great way, I would look for, like, sort of natural, you know, Arabic sentences in the wild. Like, if you can find things that where you have the spoken sentence and it's actually already written out for you so you don't have to transcribe it yourself, that can be real. I would say that is a much better source of Arabic sentences.
Yes, ChatGPT is surprisingly good at this. Then build lists of phrases and sentences that are useful to you personally. So this way you build useful vocab, and even more importantly, you'll build an intuitive sense of Arabic grammar.
Sorry, my cup of tea came with a little snack. A little bit of blood sugar for the following the mid stream break. I will say what he's saying here. I disagree with the way he's was suggesting to obtain the sentences, but the value of them I totally agree with him on. I mean, this is not just Arabic either, because if you get used to the sentences and you know enough about what they mean, however you come by that knowledge. Getting used to the way they're said, the way that native speakers, that to me is the key. Because ChatGPT, apart from getting it wrong, you can tell it's ChatGPT. You can tell it sounds like a fucking machine. Even when it's not wrong, it has that sort of clanker sound to it. But you do develop a sense of where things go, of how to phrase things. But I would say get it from get it from actual speakers, like get it from movies and stuff. get it from watching Al Jazeera or Al Mayadeen or music or stuff like that. Get the find the phrases that are interesting to you. Build up, and you shadow them and understand them. And the more of that you do, the more you will start to understand, the more you will start to also understand how these things are naturally formed. I mean, a lot of my colloquial Japanese knowledge came actually from shadowing material from, Japanese dubbed versions of the X-Files and a few movies, because I ran across all sorts of structures I'd never heard of that are very key to the way people talk, and it was very key, and it was very clear from the context what they meant, and I learned tons from that. So I would not do it with ChatGPT, but I would definitely do it.
Over time. Huzzah! Listening to podcasts.
I do that with stuff that I see on the news and stuff that I see in songs and stuff like that. And I know, the more you listen to the songs and the more you understand from them, the more you also understand how things work. And it's, I would use a different source, but the method he's describing to do with what you get from the different source, definitely good.
Is a great way to improve your Arabic. And if you're a total beginner, you should check out the free Arabic audio course from Language Transfer.
Okay, I'm curious. Because one thing that my Arabic is very limited on is specifically sort of the listening and the production. I can understand a lot of individual words. Every once in a while I understand a whole sentence and stuff like that. I mean, of course, the stuff I'm listening to is full speed native Arabic for native speakers on the news, watching the newscast and stuff like that. So that would be inherently more difficult. But so that sounds like that could be good.
It's almost all in English, but you'll pick up some useful phrases and grammar.
Oh, okay.
If you already know the basics, you can make your way through the massive collection of audio lessons from Kalimni Arabi. The textbooks are a little dated, but the audio guides are phenomenal, and there are hundreds of them.
Oh, yes, please do. I mean, anyone who has, favorite resources of theirs, please do. Post them in the Discourse. I mean, and if you have stuff that you'd like me to, that you've seen, that you'd be interested in me talking about, too, put that stuff in the Discord. I want to see it. It makes what I'm doing easier, and it makes it more interesting for people watching. If I'm talking about stuff they definitely want me to talk about.
Available for free on SoundCloud. As always, I'll put the link below. Intermediate learners have plenty of good options, but my number one rec is Ishab al-Yasar, or swipe left.
Ishab al-Yasar.
This podcast is about, you guessed it, dating in modern day Egypt, and it's very well produced. It doesn't have too much slang, and the hosts speak at a moderate pace.
Okay, interesting.
If you only listen to one podcast, make it Ishab al-Yasar. And finally, for advanced listeners, I would recommend either Kifaya Ba'a or the Durus Online podcast.
Okay. Oh, the first one is apparently comedy. Okay, interesting.
Kifaya Ba'a is a comedy show. It's filled with slang, it's super casual, and Durus Online is an interview show where people talk about their personal and professional journeys. The tone is still really natural, but the content is generally more serious. Pick the one that works for you. Uh-oh, here it comes. Arabic grammar. Yes, it's definitely...
Okay, this is one of the things I'm especially interested in, because there are a couple of challenges and footholds that sort of recommend themselves. One of the obvious things when you're getting into reading is you don't have the vowels explicitly written down unless you're reading the Quran or religious text for the most part, or it's a word that's got an unusual structure to it, and so they're flagging it up because even native speakers wouldn't automatically get it. But you've also got It's related, actually. These structures, and developing your understanding of these structures so you can recognize new words is a huge thing. So I'm very interested in his thoughts here.
Tricky for English speakers and, most people on Earth. But the good news is that this free website has an excellent breakdown of various Arabic grammar topics in English. And it's all
Interesting.
nicely organized, so you can find what you want in seconds instead of having to page through a textbook. The link is below, check it out. Okay, look, there's only one way to feel comfortable speaking Arabic, and that's by speaking more Arabic.
Okay,
Yes,
yeah, true.
I wish I could give you a magic pill, but that's the reality. As I mentioned, I think it's absolutely worth hiring a tutor on Preply. I probably would not have become fluent without that. But you can also use these sites to set up a free language exchange where you and your partner teach each other your native languages. Or, you could go all in and just move to Cairo. You kind of want to. Listen, I'll put lots of other useful stuff below, but at this point, you have every...
Okay. Interesting. A very good, a very good introductory list of resources there. There's some stuff I'm definitely going to be checking out. Now we've got another one. This is from Qasim Razvi. And it is 8 mistakes to avoid when learning Arabic.
Most people learning Arabic.
And let's see, video URL. This is from a channel called Qasim Razvi Learn Arabic. I'm guessing from the name.
Arabic waste hours on things that don't actually work, and they don't even know it. I've been there.
Like possibly a Farsi speaker in addition to being English? I've already gone past the window. Language Mania says, I've heard that if you learn maybe the 1,000 most used words in Al-Quran, you will be able to understand almost 70%. I have no idea. I hadn't heard that, but I've also never actually really read Al-Quran, so I have no idea. I don't even know how many repetitions there are. I wouldn't be surprised if there are some words that you hear quite a bit. I mean, certainly if you've got the names of the main people who show up in it, that would probably be a useful foothold, but not really my area, not my reading material.
Myself, and it's super frustrating despite all the effort you're putting in. In this video, I want to break down 8 mistakes that hold learners back and show you how you can avoid them to help you learn smarter, not harder. And then that's Hobby. Hi friends, I'm Qasim, and I studied Arabic and Persian at Cambridge. And on this channel, we focus on how...
yeah, I was gonna say, this accent just says Oxbridge. The very posh.
To learn Arabic efficiently and effectively. I've learned loads of languages and I want to help you out on your own language learning journey. So if you're interested in learning or improving your Arabic so that you can understand the Quran, appreciate the beautiful Arabic culture, or even just travel around the Middle East, then do consider subscribing. Alright, let's dive in. Mistake number 1 is not differentiating between MSA and dialect. This is a thing...
Okay. I mean, I would have thought those would be fairly easy to differentiate between, but okay.
That a lot of people who start learning Arabic just genuinely aren't that aware of. The amount of times I've heard someone say, I want to be able to speak Arabic, and then they go and learn MSA, then wonder why they can't speak to anyone and can't seem to be able to find anyone speaking MSA.
Yeah, I mean, or they speak to people and they understand it, because everybody kind of has to understand MSA to understand like the news and stuff like that. But they won't understand what people say back, because nobody talks like that.
A big misalignment of goals there. And if you're just starting out, here's what you need to know. MSA and Arabic dialects are totally different beasts, each with their own purpose and vibe. So here's a quick breakdown basically. MSA, or modern standard Arabic, is what you'll see in formal settings. So that's news, books, media, and official speeches.
Okay, I'm gonna just skip ahead, so... Because I think, well, I mean, we've just talked a whole bunch about these sorts of things in the last video. So, I want to get through all of the mistakes.
Number 2 is neglecting the Arabic script. So obviously...
Okay, yeah, definitely important. Especially, again, pleasure reading in your target language is a major motor of grammar acquisition. So being able to read, actually, really important. And getting used to the fact that you don't have explicit vowels is a challenge that, I mean, the earlier you start with it, probably the better, because you have to eventually get through with it.
Reading transliteration or Arabic with vowels feels easier at first, but basically you need to switch to the script as soon as possible, and then when you're ready, switch to reading without vowels too.
I'm hoping that one type of advice that would be really good, and I hope that there's more of it, is specifically making that switch. Because, I mean, the one thing that I've found that is helpful in this is understanding the different structures. Like, the more I've actually listened to Arabic spoken, the easier it is for me to work out, just looking at a word, what the vowels would be, you know, because, you know, I get more used to the structures and stuff. But more advice on that would definitely be ideal. I hope he gets into that.
You're never ready, so you just got to jump straight in and start doing it. I don't really have much else to say on this one, guys. Like, basically, you just got to do it. Mistake number 3 is becoming an I'rab nerd, so aka getting too caught up in grammar. And I'll explain.
Okay. Interesting.
Explain what that is now. Now, I'm obviously.
I mean, I am a grammar nerd, but I also, when it comes to acquisition, I'm also a firm believer in not getting too caught up in it, because much of it is acquired in different ways.
All for people learning the rules of the language, but some people with Arabic become what I'm going to call I'rab nerds. So what is I'rab? So I'rab is the system in Arabic that adds endings to words to show their role in a sentence, whether it's the subject, object, possessive, and so on. It's like a very important part of Arabic, especially in classical and modern standard Arabic. So that's...
Yeah, I mean, and it can be quite useful for understanding words that are related to new words that are related to words you know. I will say that.
I'm using the phrase I'rab nerd here that I just basically made up to talk about people who want to go through every sentence and pronounce all the I'rab and analyze the sentence to death. If you've ever studied Arabic before, you probably know exactly the person I'm talking about. And to be fair, I actually love intense grammar and complex sentence grammar breakdowns, but like, look, sometimes it's just not worth being an I'rab nerd.
I mean, I would say if you can identify the if you identify the consonant combinations that are being used with new words, that's and can kind of make sense out of it based on it. That in terms of acquisition, that's probably the main thing you need. And if you get too caught up in it, then you don't actually get a lot of reading and input and stuff like that. It is easy to get very obsessive about these things if you're into them.
These people just focus so much on the grammar and I'rab for every sentence they read that maybe I think it ends up holding them back. So yes, know it.
Definitely
yes,
can
understand it. Yes,
I mean, and that's true. And I mean, a lot of the best sorts of advice like this will apply to more than one language.
To analyze it if you have to, but you don't have to be perfect in everything to achieve what you want to achieve.
Okay. So, moving on to next piece of advice. Underestimating, like the companion one. Underestimating the power of Arabic forms. Okay, cool.
The forms in Arabic are incredibly powerful, but a lot of people don't realize how much they can simplify things, and so don't spend the time to really nail them down.
Oh, this is interesting. I want to know about this.
Intermediates and don't have the forms on command like that. It amazes me. But it's so obvious how much it holds these people back. This is literally probably the biggest cheat code in Arabic, in my opinion.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is one of the things, and this is a useful thing. There's a version of this in every language. There is, I mean, I actually did a video on it. Like, there are different types of morphology, and different languages have different morphology. And morphology is essentially the way that words come together. And the more you understand how morphology works, and in some languages, it's a very kind of make it up as you go along. Some languages, because there are all sorts of different sources, etymologies, like English has words from a million different languages, so lots of different morphology going on. But, then there are languages like Arabic, which have actually a very regular, very sort of regimented way of forming words. And when you know these things, this both allows you to understand new words, and potentially to kind of make up new words on the fly if you need them. Or at least guess. If you don't know the word for a thing, you can at least kind of guess at what it is, and then watch people's reaction and see if you were right.
What are the forms? Very briefly, if you're not familiar, basically they're patterns applied to root letters that create words or verbs with specific meanings. So it's this set of rules or patterns that you can just learn. There are 10 of them in MSA. And by learning these forms, you can start recognizing words you've never seen before and you can guess their meanings, because so much of what you come across will be derived.
I hope he has like good resources for this, because this is really a crucial thing. And I definitely could do more of it, though I've done enough of it that I know what he means by like the power of it, because it is really central to Semitic languages in general. Actually, if you know these forms, you know like the sort of source code of the language. You know the language's API, sort of.
Just by understanding forms, your ability to recognize and understand words can literally 10x. And I'm not even joking. Like, if you learn the forms by heart and practice recognizing them in words, you'll be able to pick up meanings on the fly. Once you know them, Arabic starts making sense faster. I personally would commit to learning the forms early, and you'll see a huge difference in how much and how quickly you understand. Mistake number 5 is setting unrealistic goals.
I mean, a mistake that is a kind of a mistake that exists in all sorts of contexts, and certainly there is a lot of content on YouTube that will encourage people to set them. When it comes to language learning, people are like, okay, I became totally fluent in Japanese in 2 weeks or something like that, and it's like, no, you didn't. Either you did not become fluent, or it took you way longer than the 2 weeks, but nobody's managing it in 2 weeks.
The quickest ways to burn out in Arabic, setting goals that are way too big. In my opinion, this is a huge mistake, because while Arabic can be straightforward, it becomes overwhelming fast if you go in thinking, I'm going to master everything all at once. Like, that's a recipe for frustration. Let me give you a different way to look at it. Instead of trying to be fluent in all aspects of Arabic, ask yourself, what's the one skill that if I mastered it would make the biggest difference? Maybe
I mean, that's the thing. So many skills, so many particular features in a given language will unlock other stuff. So if you have certain core things that you know, they can actually make the other things you don't know more accessible. And the more of those you pick up, the more things that you will actually become more accessible. So having knowing the things that get you within a couple of steps of different things, like the most possible things, is a kind of a good approach.
Conversational skills to connect with people, or MSA basics to start reading. Whatever it is, pick one main focus and commit to it. And here's the thing, when you set one clear, manageable goal, you avoid drowning in information. You start seeing progress right away. This keeps you motivated and helps you actually stick with it. So don't make the mistake of setting these like giant, vague goals. Start with something specific, get really good at it, then build it from there. Like, that way Arabic feels achievable and you're stacking wins without getting burnt out.
Yeah, I mean, I like the phrase of stacking wins, because that is very important. Shares what sentiment, Ata?
Mistake number 6 is not being consistent. And here's the truth about learning Arabic or any language.
I mean, I would say consistency isn't as important as a lot of people make it out to be. It doesn't hurt. You probably will speed things up if you're more consistent. But if you're not in a particular hurry and you're just trying to, get better at a thing without any particular deadline, consistency isn't the most important thing, I don't think.
Consistency is everything, and it doesn't matter if you're doing 20 to 30 minutes a day or just a few times a week. As long as you're consistent, you're building that momentum, and that's what leads to real progress. Think about it this way. If you're learning Arabic in a formal setting, they give you a timetable, right? You're showing up regularly, going through the steps, and you're consistent because you have to be. But if you're self-studying, you need to build that timetable yourself. And
I mean, you have to have a clear idea of what you're doing. It definitely... If you have no idea what you're doing or how you're going about it, you're just going to be doing random shit. Maybe you pick some and maybe you make progress and maybe you don't. definitely useful to have at least a clear idea. Yeah. Focusing on one skill set of the 4 that's important to you instead of focusing on everything at once. Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely, like, and that particular skill set is kind of going to be different from language to language, because different languages have different sort of cheat codes. Like, the Arabic API is not the same as, say, the Georgian API. Oh, what are you making? We're looking at a video on mistakes people make when learning Arabic. Okay, so consistency, and skipping ahead, let's see what the next one is.
Is not engaging your brain actively.
Okay, yeah, I mean, active engagement is definitely important. And incidentally, if you want to know what a posh English accent, when you hear people talk about that, this guy has one. This is the accent you hear in the halls of, like, Oxford and Cambridge, and Westminster. This is a posh English accent.
One common mistake, especially if it's your first time learning a language, is not actually engaging your brain when you study. Just glancing over vocab lists or skimming through grammar notes without really focusing, that's not the same as learning. To make real progress, you need focused, active engagement.
Yeah, I mean, which can take all sorts of forms, and does not necessarily mean that you're, like, externally doing something. If you're mentally, like, trying to comprehend things and mentally, like, actively trying to make sense of something you're hearing, that is a form of active engagement too. Like, to somebody who is just looking at you from the outside, they can't necessarily tell that you're doing anything. But what's going on in your brain is very different to just a passive engagement.
Simple, right? Like, you can't expect to look at words or read notes and magically absorb it all. Like, the real gains come from periods of deep focus and active concentration, where you're actually working with the language and challenging your brain. Anything you're consuming, even if it's watching content by yourself, it's going to be way more immediately useful for you if you actively try to learn from it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're, like, even just actively trying to pay attention to it. Although I'll say, I mean, and this is the first time I have ever heard anyone make this particular, offer this particular piece of advice other than myself. This guy who has a channel, we looked at a bit of one of his comprehensible input listening practice videos, guy Khasu Atsayev, who is apparently from Chechnya, speaks beautiful Arabic as far as I can tell. And he had this, like, podcast about listening, and at one point he says, you know, even if you don't understand a thing, you're not getting nothing out of it, because you're still getting an understanding of the rhythm of the language, of like where one word begins and another word ends and stuff like that. And that's how I've always felt about it as well, but it's the first time I've ever actually heard somebody other than myself say that.
I like to set myself up to be able to have these focused study sessions is I keep separate notebooks, each with a specific purpose. So I have one for grammar, where I write out key concepts in, like, a condensed format that's easy for me to review. Another's a general vocab notebook for new words that I come across. And then a third one for just interesting phrases and sentence structures I want to remember. And when I go back to review,
I mean, I will say I've never been that organized about it myself. I just sort of jot things down and listen to them, and listen to them over and over and over again, and read things. Okay, you know, I'm very slapdash about that sort of thing, but I can see the utility for people who really who are much more organized about these things than I am.
These notes, I fully focus, engaging my brain as much as I can, and I've been organized enough to capture all this stuff, like, in advance. And that's just an example, but the main point here is really that just passively reviewing things or skimming over notes feels like progress. But to actually learn, you need focus, time, and attention.
I mean, and I would add, one of the things that's important, even if you're, like, actively engaging, is to occasionally bring new stuff into the mix. I mean, it's good if you have stuff you can watch over and over and again. And for a while anyway, you will get you will find new things each time you do it. But putting new things into your rotation will, for one thing, it'll keep it more interesting, and for another thing, you will be picking up new stuff.
I'd say set aside time for concentrated hands-on learning. You'll be amazed at how much faster everything sticks. Alright, another big mistake, relying on textbooks for too long.
Yeah. I mean, there's also a whole conversation to be had around the fact that there are textbooks and there are textbooks, but yeah, you definitely, the more you get into just authentic material in the target language, the better. Once you've got enough to begin to comprehend it.
Obviously, textbooks give you structure, but textbooks alone won't get you really good, and they're super dry most of the time, as much as some of them try to make it interesting. And for those two reasons, I think you have to take things beyond them.
Yeah, like so many textbooks miss the opportunity that example sentences provide. Their example sentences are boring as hell. And the nice thing about an example sentence is it could be anything. You can just get weird with it if you want, and it'll be much more memorable. Weird example sentences in whatever you're learning would be one of the things that I would actually strongly suggest. Like, just make a bizarre, surrealist, just get wild with it. It'll probably be more memorable, and it'll certainly be more fun.
Jumping into whatever you're studying Arabic for, even if it's just a bit, or something you find interesting or fun. I think that's a key part of staying motivated while learning. And for me personally, it's been one of the things.
Okay. So those were his suggestions. Okay, let's see, what can we do? Okay, I was talking about Japanese resources, and this is actually in a separate playlist, so I gotta go find it. Because there is a channel that I found in doing my preparation for the Japanese bar exam that is probably a very good source of input for people who are specifically looking to learn legal Japanese. And for people who are interested in that, and also it does a pretty entertaining. It's a fairly entertaining channel. It's basically learn law bar for beginners through the medium of manga. Basically, he does cartoons and he breaks down key judicial decisions and stuff like that. And we're gonna have a look at this guy. Is named Wada Hiroshi, and his channel is Wada Hiroshi no Horitsu Koza. I'm gonna link that in chat. I watch quite a lot of his stuff, and here we go. We're gonna let's see, what's a good one we can look at. Somu keyaku to yūshō keyaku. Tōgin kanyōzai. Okay. To give you an idea of this, this is... Oh wow, that's cool, Riveroon. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The weirder and the funnier the stuff is, the more it's going to stick in your head. So, okay, we're just going to look at this. Let me see. What kind of subtitle have we got? This, I mean, this is Japanese. This is something that is actually for much more advanced learners. Hello, Oreo5612. Welcome to the channel. I think it's the first time I've seen you in chat, so good to see you here. This is content directed at native speakers, so it is spoken at a natural speed, but he does a lot of visuals. So if you're learning Japanese and you specifically want to get into like legal terminology and stuff like that, definitely a good thing. Und ja, ich kann tatsächlich Deutsch sprechen. Du? Okay, subtitles deactivated. Okay, we have auto-generated Japanese subtitles. Ah, wo kommst du denn her? Okay, minasan gokigen yo, Wada Hiroshi desu. Okay, reasonably good. Nö, also ich komme eigentlich aus USA. Ah, aus dem Saarland. Ja. Bin bisher nur, also ich war einmal auf Durchfahrt im Saarland, aber ich hatte aber mal eine 10-Pfennig-Münze, die ja also von der Zeit datiert, also in der Nachkriegszeit, als der Volksentscheid zur Zugehörigkeit des Saarlandes zu Deutschland oder Frankreich noch nicht stattgefunden hatte. Und und jetzt ist die längst ausgegeben. Ich hätte die eigentlich behalten müssen. Also ich bin dreisprachig aufgewachsen, also mit Deutsch, Spanisch und Englisch, und also die sind ja in dem Sinne primi inter pares.
4月11日の羽です。いわゆるゴットン氏事件。
Okay, not very good auto-generated subtitles. Because he's saying keiho, which means, in this case, criminal law. But it can also be spelt in a way that means a warning bell or something like that, and that is how it is being pronounced here. So, okay. So, this is just an example of the sort of content, and it's good for, it's actually fairly, as audio goes, he is not too hard to understand. He speaks clearly. He speaks with a Kansai dialect. So if you want to get used to Kansai Japanese, which is spoken in the West, for people not familiar, then, he switches it to Kansai fairly often.
というやつです。では早速参りましょう。
Ach, danke. Ja, also das kommt eben davon. Und was heißt hier Donate $5? Hast du irgendwo, wo eigentlich? Frage ich mich jetzt. Denn ich sehe das, ja, ich sehe das hier nicht, aber ich will, also wenn du gespendet hast, dann, also herzlichen Dank. Vielen herzlichen Dank, jedes bisschen hilft, aber ich sehe es nicht und ich will einfach mal sicher gehen, wo das alles ist. Denn diese Benachrichtigung im Chat habe ich noch nie gesehen. Frau? Okay. Like, here we go. This is right here. This is Kansai. Hanashinai. Like instead of e.
昭和22年の5月13日の出来事です。その日の朝の9時。
Yeah, like he speaks actually at a pretty reasonable speed. He isn't like, this isn't really high octane speed Japanese. Ah, 46. So the way he does this, since Japanese, like when he's talking about when he's giving examples, and Omi, also Tante höchstens, Ich habe zwei Nichten, eine, die ja also bald auf die Uni geht, da kommt man sich ja durchaus ein bisschen älter vor. Und eine, die gerade den Sprung in die Oberstufe vornimmt. So, the main character when he's giving these examples or looking at judicial opinions in the facts is Hiroshi-kun, the guy you see on the right there. And then there's Hanako on the left. And so Hiroshi-kun is the one who's always getting into some kind of shit.
花子さんは借金まみれの状態でした。その日の生活に困るぐらいもう結構ひどい状態だったんですね。その花子さんが何かお金が手に入るいい考えはないかと。
Anime? Also ich gucke eigentlich nicht so viel Anime. Und eine Frage, also hast du, ich sehe hier immer wieder Donates $20 oder Donates $5. Hast du eigentlich gespendet? Also ich habe das halt noch nie gesehen so im Chat und da frage ich mich, wo das eigentlich angekommen ist. Denn, also mal sehen. Wenn das der Fall sein sollte, dann vielen herzlichen Dank. Will nur wissen, wo es eigentlich hinkommt. Denn, also die Benachrichtigung, wie gesagt, habe ich noch nie gesehen. Nee, Created Dashboard. Wie hast du das eigentlich gemacht? Denn, wie gesagt, ich habe das noch nie so gesehen und ich will nur, ja, und ich habe auf dieser Seite eigentlich keine Benachrichtigung erhalten und ich will nur wissen, auf welchen Account die Spende eigentlich gegangen ist.
ひろしくんに相談したんです。そこでひろしくん、じゃあ俺がよくしている岡田。
So this is so the way he does it, he actually does, it's like a very entertaining summary of these cases, and then he gets into the legal concepts. So this is about a case where the defendant who ends up appealing is approached by Hiroshi-kun is approached by Hanako, who's broke, and says, "Do you know any way I can make some money real quick?" And Hiroshi-kun, out of the goodness of his heart, for no money in exchange, which is important legally, says, "Okay, there's some really rich people nearby, and here's a detailed diagram of their massive sprawling estate, so you can burgle them." And Hanako instead decides it can't. Ich küsse doch deine Arsch. Wie? Ja. Langsam. Und das klingt jetzt auch ein bisschen nach sexueller Belästigung, muss ich mal sagen. Nee, habe ich nicht. Okay, so Hiroshi-kun draws this detailed diagram for these rich people's house for burgling, but then Hanako decides to do an armed robbery of an electronics store next door to it. Ja, okay, das war's eigentlich, finde ich. Ja, also jetzt reicht's aber langsam mit solchen Bekundungen. So the question is, okay, so Hiroshi-kun gets held criminally liable for what Hanako did, even though he actually, what he said was, here, burgle these rich people, and Hanako did something completely different. And so the question becomes, is he liable for giving the idea of like burgling or robbing somebody? But that's the underlying idea. But this channel, if you're looking to get used to, ja, also ein Flugplatz wäre da für dich, denn du fliegst jetzt raus. Yeah, as that had moved into sexual harassment territory, and although I see these things saying donates $5, donates, I'm not seeing any evidence that any donation actually happened, unfortunately. That would have been nice. Not to say very needed. But yeah. Okay, so a great channel if you already speak pretty good Japanese and you're looking specifically for comprehensible input that is specifically also to do with legal topics. That is Wada Hiroshi no Horitsu Koza. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've never seen this thing that shows up in a chat message saying, donate something else. And I'm not seeing it showing up anywhere. I was just looking on my, like, stream manager on Twitch, and there was no sign of it there. So I don't know what the deal there is. But we're going to switch over. Let's see. The polyglot effect has a video here. We'll remember the polyglot effect because Evil Dio is a real asshole to the polyglot effect. And that's the first I'd ever heard of the polyglot effect, who seems to have a reasonably good channel, and I'm curious. So she has a video on how to go from B1 to C2 in any language fast. Which, okay, so we've been looking at stuff that is very much geared at people who are just getting started. Let's see what she has to say about the jump and the what's often called the intermediate plateau. Hello, Brian. God, I could use a bit of showering, actually. Yeah, entirely possible, but he was speaking in German and it was coming in English.
The intermediate level, and no matter what you do, you just can't seem to break through to fluency. I get it. I've been there. I currently speak 2 languages at the C2 level, English and French, and in this video
I guess that's 2 languages other than her native language, because she's Polish.
Going to share with you exactly what helped me to get from intermediate to advanced. So I'm gonna share my best tips, tricks, and what not to do as well. So if you are interested in that, make sure to keep on watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe.
So, okay.
It is actually something else. The real problem isn't your knowledge, it's
right, I forgot to link the video in chat, so we're gonna do that right now.
how you're trying to use it. This is the biggest mindset shift that I had to make when I was learning English and French. I had to stop treating them as separate parts of my life. I had to start living those languages in order to become fluent. Because the thing is, you cannot memorize your way to fluency. You have
to... Yeah, very true. And this is why I kind of this is why whenever I hear somebody talking about like memorizing a certain number of words or whatever, I immediately sort of like internally facepalm a bit because they've misunderstood the assignment. Like you have to remember words, obviously, but memorizing words does not actually mean you know a language.
To live your way into it, and that means surrounding yourself with your target language, and I mean with the real language, not only materials that are meant for language learners.
Yes.
Surround yourself.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would say good advice at any level, but certainly if you're trying to make the jump from like the sort of intermediate level to the C level, the more advanced level, then you absolutely, at a certain point, you just have to start really getting deep into authentic materials for native speakers. Because at a certain point, there isn't a whole lot of advancement you're going to be able to make with stuff that is being, in various ways, pre-digested to make it easier for learners. At a certain point, you just have to sort of move on to things that are just in the language.
With things that are designed for native speakers. And don't do it once or twice a week. Do it daily. And the best part about it is
oh wait, he prompted that? I thought he drew it. Oh, how do you know? Yeah, I mean they're not from any show. They were just as far as I know, he drew them.
is that you won't even notice when the shift starts to happen. You will just automatically stop translating everything in your head. You will start understanding more. You will pick up new vocab, pick up grammar in context. And
okay, I mean, we're starting out with a good piece of advice, and the other thing about it is the authentic materials are just more interesting. You have a much bigger range. See, the main way I actually engage with that particular channel is with an eye mask on. I listen to it as I'm going to sleep. So I've never paid a huge amount of attention to the drawings.
Everything will just seem more natural to you. When, like, I remember when I was at school and my teacher would ask me, well, why did you use that tense instead of the other one?
I mean, I've never seen, he doesn't like show himself drawing anything or anything like that, but the characters are but the characters are always quite consistent. I mean, the drawings are actually always quite simple, so I mean, it doesn't look like something that would actually...
I remember thinking like, I don't know, because it sounded right. And that was because I was surrounding myself with English every single day after school. So yeah, it just, everything seemed so natural to me, and I didn't need grammar rules anymore in order to be able to speak correctly. Okay, so I want to tell you a story that changed everything for me.
Okay, let's hear this.
I was around 13 or 14 at the time, and I was learning English at school. But you know how it is when you learn languages at school, right? You just do.
I don't think those are stock images, though. I mean, you'd see them other places. You mean the thumbnails? Yeah, that's entirely possible. Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, like, the drawings in the videos are very simple things, and like, not something that somebody could like sort of knock out fairly quickly. I mean, but yeah, possibly in the thumbnails are like AI slop. That's entirely possible.
Grammar exercises and you memorize vocab lists, but you cannot actually speak. Because I was a teenager, the only thing that I wanted to do was scroll on my phone. I mean, scrolling was not a thing. I wanted to watch YouTube videos. And
okay, wow. This is so much dating me because I didn't have either of these options when I was in school. Like, I did have
sort of the internet because I had access to BBS systems using Procom 2 and a 14.4K baud modem that would take a shit anytime anyone picked up the phone.
My mom obviously was very against that, as any parent would be probably. So she gave me an ultimatum. She said, you can either watch everything in English or you give me your phone and you do something else. So I was like, okay, no, that would be like the worst thing ever to give you my phone. So that's how I started watching every single thing in English.
Yeah, I mean, this is good advice we're starting out with.
And that ultimatum literally changed my life. This is the reason that I speak English today. So at the beginning it was really difficult and I didn't really understand anything, but because I was so determined to keep watching YouTube, I just stuck with it. I don't know what the science is behind this, but it works like magic. With time, I started recognizing new words, understanding more and more, and then...
Yeah, I mean, okay, so getting off to a good start here. I'm gonna just skip, not watch the entire thing, and see what else she has to say. Because we've talked endlessly about the importance of authentic materials, and I'm interested if she says things that we haven't already talked about today.
Or stuff like that. So I'd say choose something that is interesting for you. When I was 13 or 14, that was the age when I started being very interested in makeup. So I guess you could say that the reason why I speak English today is thanks to 2015, 2016 beauty gurus on YouTube, which is kind of funny.
Oh, well, there we go. I mean, that is actually one thing that I've talked about quite a lot, is how-to videos as a useful way of acquiring language. Because, of course, they're showing you how to do the thing, and they're telling you about the thing they're doing, and so you have the visual context. Plus, if it's how to do something you actually want to know how to do, that makes it more interesting.
Taught me English. And watching things you genuinely love has so many benefits.
Yeah.
First of all, you stay engaged. You learn words that are relevant to your life, to your hobbies, your passions, your work, and you also naturally pick up how people speak. So the rhythm of the language, the tone.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, okay, like, I have nothing to add. I've said basically these exact same things a million times myself. Definitely good advice. And for trying to get, like, it is also a good way to sort of jump in if you're trying to get past the intermediate level. I would definitely agree with that, because I mean, the fact is, at a certain point you just have to start looking at the real stuff. There's just like not so much that you can, there's only so much that you can find specifically for learners. And at a certain point, that's just going to be keeping you back. You know, at a certain point, you just have to start looking at the real thing.
Subtitles. I'm working with a little girl right now who really wanted to become fluent in English, and that's what I suggested to her. So she started watching everything in English with subtitles in Polish, and then after a few weeks she switched to subtitles in English, and right now she's watching without subtitles. And when I asked her recently how it was going, she told
Hanzo Jamu. Not familiar with the channel's name, but yeah, I mean, that is definitely just a good way to do it, because the more interesting it is, and like the stuff that is very visual, I mean, that is just an excellent way of transitioning. I think it's good at any level. You can probably benefit from a good how-to video in your target language at any level. But when you're trying to just get, you know, jump off the high board into the deep end and actually get used to looking at just legit authentic materials, it's a good bridging. It's definitely good bridging stuff.
me that she was able to understand everything. That's just amazing.
Oh yeah, go right ahead, do it.
She's 10 and she can already understand a whole movie in English. Okay, so you've made that mindset shift, you are surrounding yourself with your target language. Now it's time to actually start using the language. If you are writing a grocery list, for example, write it in your target language.
Oh, also definitely good advice. I mean, this is stuff that I do. Like, stuff that I've done for a very long time. Ah, hola, boa noite.
if you journal every single morning, then try journaling in your target language. Even if you cannot form that many sentences or you don't know how to say something, you can make mistakes. It's
yeah. I mean, you are getting used to producing your target language, and the more you get used to doing that, actually, the better. Like I used to, like when I was in high school, I would like put my notes in Japanese a lot of the time, like sort of modified in a lot of ways, just based on because I didn't speak it very well then yet. But I would just do that. Like I took my teachers were like, "What the hell are you doing?"
Fine. And there are so many ways you can do this. You can literally substitute anything you do in your native language with doing that same thing in your target language. So if you want to look up a recipe, let's say, then look it up in your target language.
Yes.
Or
I mean, especially if your target language happens to be the language of the place where this recipe was invented. I mean, then it's even better. Like, I mean, like, I always, when I'm looking for, like, Italian recipes, I always just look for those in Italian. I mean, I would say, Brian, one of the real challenges for that sort of, for this sort of immersion is you have to actually find the stuff you care about. And that means being able to do good search terms and having some idea of where to like find find the stuff that you really want to see. And that can be in itself really challenging. So having like that kind of advice. Also, like, I mean, one skill that you just don't really see taught much is good search terms. Like, because search terms don't work quite the same way in every language. Apart from everything else, like, these search engines are not always optimized for every language because different languages have different amounts of content online. Yeah, I see. Yeah, I mean, Tio Aldo was saying, for anyone who doesn't read Portuguese, that he studies, he watches medical content in French. Because he studies medicine. And, yeah, I mean, eu tenho feito o mesmo.
What else? Even if you are thinking something to yourself, try to say that in your target language. The more you make your target language your default, the more natural it will become. I
yes,
feel like I'm
definitely. Yeah, like, all of this is just excellent advice. And I have to say, I mean, Evil Dia really just owes her an apology. I understand the copyright strike thing was not a great method to achieve what she was trying to do, but a video is driving harassment to her. A video that he made, and that's something you actually ought to take seriously as it happens. Because this is all very good advice. Like, what she's giving here for advice to get past that intermediate plateau is actually is good advice. It's what I would give as well. It is methods that I have actually employed myself quite successfully. Definitely, I mean, like, she clearly knows way more about this than fucking Evil Dia does, who does not, in fact, know a whole lot about this.
We heard this phrase many times before. I can understand everything.
Assim, o meu doom scrolling é muito multilingue. Porque tenho amigos no Chile, no Brasil, na França, Alemanha, Estados Unidos, Japão. As notícias que vejo são em todas as línguas.
Cannot actually speak the language. And this is the case for so many learners at the intermediate level, myself included. I am learning Russian and Spanish at the moment, and I am intermediate in both. My understanding...
I wonder how much Australian influence she has in her English. Because she pronounces her O's very Australian-like. Like, that is not a Polish accent she's speaking with when she does those O's. That O is very much what you hear. Like, if you listen to if you listen to Australians do a long O sound, it sounds a lot like that.
Especially in Spanish, is very, very good. The same in Russian, actually. When it comes to forming more complex sentences or talking about more complex topics, I don't know how to do it. Even though if someone were to tell me about that topic, I would probably understand everything, but I just cannot form my own sentences, right? The thing is...
Okay, and it is now time to wrap up for today. I'm just going to drop the link to this video in chat once more for anyone who missed out, because it is really good advice. I highly recommend it. That people who are trying to get past that sort of intermediate plateau that people can end up at, follow it. It is like, it is so much of it is just advice that I've given a million times. Definitely worth watching, definitely worth subscribing to her. Have I already? I think I already subscribed to her over, yes I did. Just off of the strength of Evil Dia being such a prick to her. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I will be back at 4:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time on Friday. And meanwhile, if you want to support the stream, one thing that is very much appreciated are donations to my current crowdfunded translation project. I am right now trying to raise the remaining $705 for my current fundraiser. I kind of need to raise it ASAP to cover some urgent expenses and things like that, so all support in that regard is very much appreciated. That first link is where you can find the finished translations, and the second link is where anyone so inclined will acquire my eternal gratitude by providing some donations to the stream. If you can't, you can't, and nobody should feel bad because they can't. But if you can and you want to,